Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a little bit of a discussion topic to share with you guys. I want to do my semi-annual Toxic Knife World Elitist Awareness video, mainly for the benefit of new people. We all remember what it was like to be new and not know very much, right? Be excited but be confused by a lot of stuff, right? At every turn, at every intersection, it seems like there's a million people telling you what to buy, what not to buy, how to think, this or that, right? It's confusing. And some people, the way that they go about it, it's so off-putting that they end up turning new people off to the knife community in general. And that's really sad. It's always a bummer when I see that in my own comment section. It is rare most of the time. You guys down here, you're really positive, really helpful. I love that. Periodically, I get some salty boys, right? Instead of combating them one at a time, which is, I'm not going to do that. It's way easier for me to make a video for new people about what to watch out for, what types of people to wave off. There's a few different types of comments that you'll see that are absolutely things that you can ignore entirely, and I'm going to talk about them today for your benefit. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. I love catering to new people. I don't do it often enough. This channel is meant to be extremely welcoming to new people, to everyone, but definitely to new people as well. If you've watched my reviews, I realize the irony of this, by the way. I'm about to tell you what to think by telling you what people you should ignore when they tell you what to think. When I review a knife, I like to pick it up and talk about what I do and don't like, give my opinions on it. Then I also like to talk about who I think might like it, even if it's something that I don't really like, right? Try to keep that open so that people can dissect my reviews, take the parts that they like or don't like, and then they can make their own decision. I don't want to present what I think as law or as absolute or as something that you cannot debate. Even though sometimes I argue with some of you guys down in the comments section, I still don't want to present it that way, and I want to be as helpful as possible. What I think is easily identifiable as something that people can ignore is when people, some people, present their thoughts as absolute fact, or people who say things that's meant to make other groups of people feel stupid for making a certain choice. That's the kind of stuff that I want to help new people ignore. And some of it is really easy to identify for somebody like me who sees a lot of comments, or somebody who's been around in the knife community for a long time, but it might not be as easy for a new person. I have a whole bunch of knives laid out, knives that range anywhere from $30 all the way up to about $1,100. These are all mine. Knives that are manufactured in different parts of the world, right? Knives that a lot of people like. In fact, if you are not new to the knife world, you probably can identify all of these. You can probably tell me exactly what all of them cost. If you're new, maybe not, right? This is all stuff that a lot of people really love. These are really popular models, right? It's also, a lot of this stuff is the product of a lot of negativity. Not a lot, but some, right? There's some potent negativity periodically. Some of these people who are being negative have had experiences that, are legitimately important, right? Or their opinions based on the experiences with these knives are important, and they can be spread in a way that is helpful for some people, right? These people will spread it in a way or talk about it in a way that they, it's not meant to be presented as a this applies to everybody thing, but not like that. It might be beneficial just for a few people. It's an example of somebody who's actually trying to help. Other people will just vomit up a bunch of garbage, right? A bunch of dumpster fire garbage that's based on basically nothing. Sometimes it's literally based on no experience whatsoever. They're just yelling about something that they're angry about, and it's not helpful at all, right? I'm going to give some examples here. The QSP Penguin, largely considered to be one of the very best budget knives, one of the very best starter knives in existence. $30 for D2 and micarta, runs on a combination of phosphor bronze and nylon, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, $30 is a great knife, right? What could possibly be negative about this? Well, people will, some people will, they won't be like angry about it, but some people will get really aggressive about it. That knife's not made in the United States. You're a terrible person if you spend money on that. It's not made in the United States, right? Definitely seen people say it like that. That's too bad. If you're new, obviously, you're probably starting in this territory because it's a little bit intimidating to start off with a knife that maybe is made in the United States but costs more money, right? To a lot of us, $50, $60, $70 for some of Kershaw's US line, it's not that much money. But to somebody who's brand new and just became aware that some knives actually cost more than $50, yeah, that's a lot of money, right? So that can be a little bit of an intimidating purchase. It's a little easier to start off with something like this, right? It's off-putting to have somebody tell you that what you feel comfortable starting off with is a bad choice. Or in some cases, some people will present it as an evil choice. No, don't let people tell you that. I am somebody who's been buying, selling, trading knives for about 12 years now. I've been uploading content on YouTube for 3.5 years. Most of my more expensive purchases are absolutely with US made products. But guess where I started? Here. It's how I climbed the ladder. It's how I learned to appreciate what I like about knives. It's how I learned to understand what makes knives cost more money. Right? In the beginning, it's like, why the heck would anybody ever spend $425 on a Hinderer knife, right? Well, I started here and climbed the ladder, and guess where I ended up? A lot of you guys are like that. How many of you guys watching right now started with less expensive non-US knives and eventually worked your way into a massive collection of US knives? All that money going to, right, if you care about, I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who lives in the United States and cares about home country manufacturing. While I realize that not everybody watching this video is from the United States or even cares about that, right? All of that money that we ended up spending with these US companies never would have been spent with them if you hadn't started here in the first place. So, to new people, don't let people tell you that. To people who say stuff like that, stop looking at it that way as this black and white evil and good situation and just look at it as a door that might need to be opened before other doors can be opened for that person, right? That's the best way to look at it, right? Start where you want to start. Start where you're comfortable. Don't listen to people who tell you that it's absolutely the wrong choice. All of us have different budgets, right? All of us have a different level of experience. It's important to make purchases where you're comfortable, right? Moving on here, these are laid out right from least to most expensive. This is generally, right, there's obviously other knives that I could use as an example, but this is generally the type of progression that people make if they choose to climb the ladder. A lot of people don't choose to go past here, right, or here. A lot of people don't ever go past here, and that's fine. Benchmade and Spyderco, both companies that make knives in the USA. Spyderco, of course, does make some knives in China, Taiwan, Japan, Italy, right? But they have a huge US line. Here lately, they've come under some scrutiny for some price hikes, right? The Shaman is a great example of that. Many of us have heard the term butterfly tax, which is a term that I understand, but I hate it when people use it because new people are like, what? So they just cost more money just because? A lot of people will tell you, yeah. I would tell you, no, that's just a term people throw around because it's easier than explaining it every single time. People who will say that are oftentimes just lazy, right? So, but anyways, the Spyderco Shaman, a great example of what people get frustrated about. It used to cost in the beginning, like it was like 2 to 3 years ago, it was like $155, which was fair. Now it's $205, which is, that's high, right? I've always maintained that I felt like the Spyderco Shaman never should have costed more than $180, $185. How do I deal with this? How do I deal with this very frustrating circumstance? I just don't buy it. I just buy something else, right? Something that really makes me mad, something I want you guys to ignore if you're new. That person, I'll give you the exact comment. The Spyderco Shaman, just imagine the sound of clicking, right? It's just intense. Like they're so, like they can't wait to spread this. So mad. I need people to know, right? So imagine the sound of the keys clicking. The Spyderco Shaman used to cost $155. I am appalled to find out that it now costs $205. I will never do business with Spyderco again. Oh my gosh. Calm down. Your life must be a ball of negative stress. That is so intense. Oh my God. So here's what you could do. Don't dwell on that. Go find something else. There are an infinite number of choices in Spyderco's line, right? Because Spyderco, if you don't know, has a gajillion models, right? Not just talking about everything. I'm talking like just within their US line. They've got plenty of other knives that Maybe they're not the same thing as the Shaman, right? But the Spyderco Manix 2, for example, is still an excellent price. You can't always find it, but it's a much better price. Similar materials, similar, theory of use, right? Similar design philosophy, or philosophy of use. Is that how Nut and Fancy says it, right? Yeah, right? So sometimes things are going to appear a little overpriced. That often happens when knives become super duper popular and the company sees an opportunity to make a little bit more money. That doesn't mean that they're evil. It means that they're operating the same way that many companies operate. While I don't necessarily agree with it, it's not something that I'm going to let ruin my life, right? Those are the same type of people who leave, those people who get on those websites, like they had a, less than perfect experience at a restaurant where they paid $12 for a meal and they type up a big negative review. Oh my God, are you serious? Oh, I know people who do stuff like that, right? Like their waiter or waitress took an extra 2 minutes to come back and refill their water, so they didn't tip them and they wrote a negative review. Oh my gosh. You should be ashamed of yourself if you act like that. It's the same category that I put in people, like that. It's like, all right, well then just don't eat at that restaurant anymore. Go eat somewhere else. Geez, don't let your life get ruined over it. Ridiculous. So yeah, if you find something you feel like is if you hear people saying stuff like that, ignore it. Look over the entire catalog, and if you find something that meets, the realm of budgetary comfort for you, then maybe that's a better choice, right? But don't dwell on it, and don't listen to people who dwell on it, because they're just out to be negative. Same thing with Benchmade knives. I'll admit, a lot of the stuff that Benchmade puts out seems like it's a little bit high. They do have a great warranty, though, and they have gotten way better with quality control. I think they're up to the same level where I kind of have Spyderco now. Most of what Spyderco puts out in their US line and their Taiwan line seems to be really, really good. Benchmade is absolutely up there now, uses premium materials, right? The pricing can be a little bit high, but they absolutely do have models like the Spyderco Super Freak that I think are priced appropriately. So don't let people tell you, to wave off the entire company. And also, if you're in that territory, if you're searching between the $150 and $250 territory, right? A lot of people will make a huge deal over, if they consider something to be about $20 overpriced or $30 overpriced, they'll make it sound like it's the end of the world. That is an amount of money that makes it, difficult to make that choice. But again, you can just not buy it. That's the easiest way, is to seek a new outcome, right? If your goal is to acquire an object that brings you the satisfaction and joy that you're seeking, then sitting there complaining about the thing that can't be that is just stupid, right? Those predicaments often correct themselves if the opinion is shared largely by the knife community anyway, right? So if the product keeps selling, if it stays popular, then it probably isn't going to come down in price. You have two options. You can go ahead and, grit your teeth and spend the money, or you can just not buy it, right? Everything else in between is just toxicity. It's not helpful for anybody, right? But trying to turn people off to the brand just because you're mad that you didn't get your way, that's bad, right? So there you go. Two more examples. Last examples here. These are all much more expensive knives. As you might be able to guess, the more expensive something becomes in the knife community, the more it's subject to criticism. Often blind criticism. Usually people just become more angry the more expensive things are, right? Knife is knife. Why knife costs more? Some knife costs more than other knife, but all knife cut. How can be? Yeah, that's all the more logic sometimes that's applied to that. I'm being really condescending here, and part of me is sorry for that, and part of me isn't, right? You have a lot of people who are, a lot of people in my comment section who I love talking with, and they present really good arguments for why they don't feel like it fits in their budget. They'll say things like, I can understand why some people might climb the ladder and arrive to this point, but I just don't appreciate this element, right? And when it comes to, I understand that maybe more work went into this element, and that's why there's an added cost there, but that's not an element that I get anything out of. So why would I spend extra money for that? That's a perfectly reasonable argument. And I mean that. I'm not being sarcastic. Sure, these people recognize that some things cost more money because more work goes into them, right? Why am I telling you this? Because oftentimes that sort of argument or that sort of frustration with people who don't know any better comes from stuff like this, right? The titanium frame lock running on bearings consisting of M390 blade steel. How many of these do we have in the knife community? About as many as Spyderco has models, right? One of these knives is made by Riot, titanium and M390, and costs $350. There's a lot of people who will tell you that that's too much money. All right, well, they're really not going to like this one. This is titanium and M390. It's made by Shirogorov in Russia. Everything is made in-house except for the bearings, I believe. And this is $1,100. 100%. Multiple people just got triggered just now. I can hear your blood boiling, right? Now, initially I can get that, right? Because it's a knife, right? It's meant to cut, and it's made out of the same materials. Why does that knife cost so much more than this knife? I'll tell you why, because more work went into this, right? You may not care, and that's fine. You may not care about how much work goes into the machining, right? The tolerances, the surface work, finishes, the actual blade grinding, the time it takes to heat treat it exactly right? Or the proprietary hardware that's all made in-house. Those elements might not matter to you, but they factually cost more money. Now, is this knife really, you know, what would that make it? $650 more expensive than this one? $750, whatever, right? My math is, it's not a math channel. Is it really worth that much more? I mean, to the individual, right? I mean, it factually costs a lot more money to make, right? Is Shirogorov making a lot more money on the Quantum than Riot and Chavez are making on the 229? I have no idea. But that knife absolutely has more work in it. Work that costs more money, right? That puts wear and tear on machines because those machines are spending more time drilling out these parts or carving out the parts, right? Absolutely. Anybody who tells you that no knife should cost, here it is. This is what to watch out for. No knife should ever cost more than X amount. That's the comment. Ignore them. Anything they have to say after that isn't worth your time because it's all based on their individual experience, and they obviously think that there's a static value to materials. Micarta should always cost this. Titanium should always cost this. G10 should always cost this. Now, to people who want to say, hey, but there definitely are situations where companies charge a little bit too much money for things because of their name. Sure, they do. Absolutely. Do I think Shirogorov's one of those companies? No. And I think that a lot of the people who say stuff like that, if they actually handled one and experienced it alongside way, way more models than they've actually handled, they might change their mind. Maybe. But they also have to value those extra elements. If they don't value those extra elements, and especially if they've never handled the knife, I can see why they might say that. So to new people, right, that's the kind of stuff to watch out for. Anybody who thinks that materials have a static value on knives, that all, right, it's usually like, no titanium frame lock with M390, right, running on bearings should ever cost more than $250 because Tucson, stop. If you hear that, no, instantly dismissed. Sorry. Tucson's not the same thing as Shirogorov. Shirogorov is very open about their processes and everything that goes into their knives. It's also very easy to recognize the difference between a Shirogorov and a Tucson. Now, I'm not being a snob. Tucson does do some impressive stuff at that price point. But is it the same thing as a Shirogorov? No. Is Tucson as open about their processes? Are they as consistent with their heat treat and fit and finish? Absolutely not. No, not even close. It makes sense to me that Tucson knives cost what they cost, right? It makes sense to me that Riot knives cost what they cost. It makes sense to me that Hinder knives cost what they cost, right? This costs more. It might be frustrating, but that's what it costs. Some people just want it to cost less so that they can have it. That doesn't mean that it should cost less. It just means that it's bothersome to them, right? They don't want it to cost that much. They also don't want to do the research that's involved with understanding why. They just want it to cost less. Some people will dwell on that, right? It's just, you know, everybody's out to get them. Every company is evil and is trying to drain their bank account. And in some situations, I'm sure that we see that. In fact, that's definitely, you know, but it's not as often as people make it sound. There's always going to be stuff that you can't buy. Like there's stuff that I can't afford. There's definitely stuff that I pay a little bit too much money for, right? But I don't like to dwell on the negative. My goal is always to seek the next thing that's bringing me joy. If I find out something or if I learn something that's less than savory, then I stop experiencing that thing and do a different thing. I can't evolve if I just sit there, you know, with my arms folded, with a big stupid frown on my face going, I'm mad about this and I'm not willing to think about anything else. You know, like that's dumb. That's a dumb way to be. So don't take advice from people like that. The knife world is fun, and there's lots of really fun stuff to experience, but start slow and climb the ladder the way that you want to and stop where you want to stop. Take advice from who you want to take advice from, but take advice from a lot of different people, or at least gather information from a lot of different people, a lot of different reviewers, right? Seek out this information so that you know, right? Because a random paragraph from a random person under a random video on YouTube is not a good source of information. I'm not saying that my videos are necessarily always better, right? But I can tell you for sure that stupid little paragraph is not going to tell you everything you need to know. Most of you guys are probably going to be really good at determining whether or not the information that you're getting from any individual in the knife community is worth your time. But I hope that this video was helpful for new people. I hope it was beneficial. Sorry if parts of it were condescending. Welcome to my channel. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. I guess my light's turned off. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.